October 10th, Thursday, 2019. That was a very weird order to put my date in. Anyway, so today was actually a pretty ridiculous day, and I loved it. It was awesome. The way that everything is reacting to everything is really phenomenal. And if you look at this massive pre-market and aftermarket moves. And we got one right now, actually. So I want to break down everything that I know and everything that I've seen so far, and I want to get into it. So let's go take a look at these charts and some of these news pieces, and we will figure out what the hell is going on. So last night, or yesterday, actually after hours, what ended up happening was the market completely just collapsed under this. This was like a 1% move. It happened in about a minute. It was insane. Now, we actually made it all up, and I think I mentioned that in yesterday's video that the market was probably going to recover this pretty immediately after hours and pre-market. But yeah, it looks like that's happened. Now, there's some news as to why each one of these things happened. Let's get into it. So when we closed yesterday, we closed with knowledge that there was a China and U.S. trade deal going on, at least talks. And what ended up happening is a headline hit basically every news article ever, saying that China was going to be leaving early today. That being today, so Thursday. They're going to be leaving, and there was no progress made. And that absolutely dumped the market. It was crazy. And if you looked at it, the yuan had also reacted as of that time as well. Find it up. There we go. If I can get this load. My computer recording this video. All right, yeah, let's go back. So yesterday. Yeah. Too far. Right there. So that was actually pretty crazy, and then we fully recovered it. Was that it? Not have been it. No. How far again? This happened, and the yuan it didn't actually react upward or downwards, and it reacted upward. So that is that I thought was pretty insane. Okay, this is the one. This is the move, and I thought that was pretty. And then the market had recovered with hopes of new talks and some other piece of information that's coming out. Now, today, a couple things that happened. Number one, or one of the things that I want to hit first, is there was a massive dump in the market at 1 o'clock. And no one could actually figure out what was causing this. It was kind of weird. And my guess was there was a news article hitting a lot of the major medias about Giuliani's co-conspirators, and Giuliani is in reference to the conversation of the president of Ukraine and the president of the U.S. They were having a phone conversation, and a lot of this goes back to this stock called CrowdStrike. It's a cloud server network that exists in Ukraine, and it was a lot of that, and that conversation is actually what triggered the talks of an impeachment. And now that talks of an impeachment, I believe that information regarding Giuliani had actually triggered this drop, and the market had reacted to it really strongly, and that was really weird. But I think mostly because of the way that this happened, I really do think that this was probably algorithmic trading. This was just a high frequency sell off by those algorithms that saw the news articles, didn't know how to parse it, and just. So that's what I think that this probably was. Oh my gosh, this was not happening when I was looking at it. But oh yeah, it was. So that's what kind of I think this will potentially be bigger news later, but not as of this moment. Because remember, things regarding the China deal are also probably going to affect, not the China deal, the Trump's impeachment are probably going to affect how this market operates. Anytime we get a new president, anytime anything big happens politically, that stuff changes. And now, speaking of politics, there is a stronger state of politics going on right now, and that is I don't want to say war exactly, but it's something going on between the Turks and the Kurdish, and that is seemingly is a fairly big deal to the U.S. and the UN in general. And recently, today actually, not too long ago, Donald Trump had actually spoken, and so I'll talk. This is actually regarding this run up right here. That is what's causing this article is, I think, what's causing this. So we'll get more into that. But oh god, I'm getting a headache. So let me see where to go. Okay. If you check Donald Trump's Twitter, you can actually see an article, not an article, a statement by him saying that we have three choices of how to deal with Turkey and the Kurdish, respectively. Funny enough, I don't think Kurds have their own country. There's no place called Kurdistan or anything like that. So this is some sort of other issue going on between the two. I have lived in Turkey for a time, and that, I don't know, this was never an issue. It was mostly some of the other countries, they were doing flyovers all the time, but that's it. I'm not Turkish, for the record, but yeah. So this is important. This is importantly political, and what this has to do with, I think, the market in general. I think this kind of injects a type of, what's the word, uncertainty into the market that we don't really know. It's like, how are people going to react to this? How are our world leaders going to react to this? These types of information, I think, are a little bit unsettling at times. And after all, this is just economics, and how people react is unpredictable especially in masses, because we don't know. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, in economics, there is no piece of information that is independent in reality. So something that happened, 30, 40 years ago can affect me personally. And I'm not 30 years old. I'm not even close. So, that's an important, actually, piece of information that I think is valuable for us to understand, that, anytime something new comes out, if you've heard people say it, don't treat the market like it was several years ago, or, it doesn't repeat itself. While that is at some level true, I mean, don't treat, October of 2015 like October of 2019, because they're different. Different events have happened between now and then, and the market is going to react differently to it. It just depends on what those events are and how much so they are reacting. Now, we have this run-up going up. We closed well above today, so we are starting to come back. So it does seem like my idea on these TT squeeze should be working out, in that, it triggered an upward trend. It took it, kind of brought it back, but now I really think it's possible that there are a currency deal going through. It's not happening yet, but if it does, I think that it's possible that the stock market can rally. Now, this isn't actually a thought that I've come up on my own. There's another YouTube channel that I listen to only, more or less. His name is Josh Answers. I don't know if that's really his name or not, but his name is Josh. He has a YouTube channel called Trading Fraternity. This is actually the entire structure of this based on how he does it. But I needed a place to collect my own thoughts, so here I am. And essentially, what it was is, if the currencies get set in play properly, if I can't speak properly, if they are stable, if we get stable currency, then the markets could rally, because then we get a form of certainty, and that form of certainty could actually be what triggers back up to 300 and then some. And I do believe that it's possible that it's going to happen, especially because of how weirdly coincidental some of these technicals are. Like I said, I don't trade on technicals. I trade on price action, news, stuff like that. But I do like to look at them just to see what the correspondence is, and it is interesting right now. It's very, very cool. Is going on. I think the TTM might work out. I'm gonna. I told you guys that I bought Amazon. I bought Amazon actually on the day that they were market, and I bought it at the very bottom, or I bought a sell. I shorted the shorts, if that makes any sense. So I sold puts on it. I made a shit ton, and I got rid of those. I wasn't controlling my account, so I sold them. Sorry, buddy. But now it does seem like it could potentially come up if we look. Now let's go back and look at these. So one thing. Oh, I did want to. So Apple is at its all-time high right now. It is well beyond high it's been. It's actually pretty awesome to see something like this happen. Now, the all-time high it's ever been was like right there, 224, and now here we are at 230, and it's insane. I have a credit to if it crosses 32, I'll start losing money, but if it doesn't, then I'll lose money. But Apple is hitting an all-time high right now. Amazon is conversely doing nothing of the sort. It's close to its all-time highs. It's about 350 points off, right? 315 points, and that's pretty insane to me. And that speaks volumes, about what's going on. I do really want to take a play in Amazon, but I need to figure out exactly how this is going to happen. Maybe an Iron Condor, perhaps, because these earnings are coming up, and this applies to the whole market. And so that's something important to look at, too. Man, I'm talking way too fast. So I think this week was crazy. I think next week is going to be crazier because now we're having time to digest all this information. The market is starting to, I don't want to say know what it's doing because it really doesn't. It's still insanely volatile. But one thing that's really interesting is like you see all this movement we had. We moved over 1% up, I believe. Yeah, about 1% up and then 1% back down. And then, we still closed roughly where we, which I think is hilarious. And I think that speaks volumes for what do you call it? What this month is. October is just very volatile. We'll see lots of movements, 10% up, 10% down, but at the end of the day, we'll probably net 1% change. So if you could hold this, you could have held this on, what day is that? You could have held this on the 7th of October. It's the 3rd right now, or it's the 11th right now. So, you could have held it for 5 days, 4 days, and it would have been the same. And I think that's kind of wild. And, these are really interesting to pay attention to. We're breaking through these levels, but we're not really breaking through them. We're kind of sitting around the same spot. And so that's kind of interesting. Now, the trade war, there's talks about the trade war going on. That's actually what the market back up in the after hours. We were expecting a tweet from Trump. We didn't get it. We got something else, the Kurdish and the Turkish. And we're starting to see the market kind of come up. This is in reference to the fact that Trump says the trade talks are going very well. So this is that. Using one of their tools, I think, to control the market. We can see that about it. It hit CNBC. They're going to algorithmic traders, and it is going to just be seen as a decent sentiment trade talks. Now, how this is going to work out, I can't even tell you. I have no idea. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future at all. I'm not a magician, but I do think that this is something you can pay attention to once you see that it's happening. Now, there's another piece of information that I really want to hit, and I thought this was awesome, but I didn't really know much about it to start, to be honest. So today there was a meeting, a Fed meeting, but it wasn't it was something else. It was hard to explain. I should go look at the FOMC. So there's a website you can go to called Econoday. Where is it? There we go. Which tells you about what the Fed has scheduled for basically that day. So it happened at 2. God forgive me for being an idiot. I do think this is insane how everything has been going on. Where are you, buddy? Not the balance sheet. This is the October. Oh, today is not the 11th. I'm sorry. Today is the 10th. What am I doing? Where are you? 2 o'clock. Either way. Okay, so basically, sorry about that. Basically, what ended up happening was the Fed had discussed, they were proposing something in order to deregulate international small banks. Now, small banks are not small, actually. They're like 200 to 250 billion to 300 billion, I think. Something along those lines. And now, what they're trying to do is deregulate them by putting less restrictions on them. So, as you should know, the Fed has a certain percentage that a certain bank has to keep in their reserve in case of some emergency, whatever that case may be. For smaller banks like this, they're starting to pull those back, and I think that's really interesting because they're trying to push more money into circulation. Now, not me, but Josh said that he thinks that a lot of this will start. This will be really good for the real estate market, which is why I actually wrote that down. And that actually would make sense. That would mean lending becomes significantly easier by these smaller banks. It wouldn't take much to start buying a house, for example, things like that. They're pushing money to be circulated. That's what matters. How this is going to be unleashed into the world, that's what we have to pay attention to because we have no idea, honestly. And you know what? That's okay. That will give us the opportunity, once this news is properly digested and understood, that'll give us the opportunity to, I think, take place and stuff like this. Now, and I think that's really cool. What this And so that stands there. I think I already spoke about the currencies becoming stabilized. If they're stable, we get a rally, things like that. The trade war, how that works out. I think the trade war is probably going to start. I think the next steps in the trade war are discussing how these currencies are going to be taken. The Turkish and Kurds, that's another situation in and of itself. Stuff like that. Now, I want to take a look at some of the plays that I'm in right now. I'm actually in a McDonald's spread against the top. This thing moved, and McDonald's is typically a value stock. And like I said, everything is headed into earnings. So all of this is setting a really interesting market sentiment. And we want to figure out what that market sentiment is. And, we'll have to do that, I think, in time. But until then, just pay attention to stuff like this. Pay attention to what is going on with these specific stocks, like value stocks. The TLT, for example, has been coming down for the last few days. So, you can see that. And it makes sense. It makes sense that now the bond, and you can actually look at the bond rates are, which is, like I said earlier in a different video, and we had the 2-year and 10-year version, we saw the 30-year it's ever been. And, we're getting short-term market sentiment, and I think we might be seeing that again. I think we might start seeing, these moves be taken in a very short-term way. And so that paired with the fact that right now it is October, one of the most volatile months of the entire year, or if not the most volatile month of the entire year, we're seeing some moves, some crazy moves that really right now downward. But pay attention to these for sure. Not the economic. And additionally, I wanted to actually hit this. Okay, by the time I started making this video, these rates were actually, there was a 79% chance of a rate cut. Now there's an 82%. And it does make sense that this happened because of this, how this week has been playing out already. Based on the trade deal, stuff like that. The Fed only has so many tools that they can use to affect the market in the way that it does. We have to keep an eye on this. Whether or not it's going to happen, like I said, I can't be sure, but it looks like the futures are pricing it in at about 82%. I think that's insane. I think that is insane. And now, if you look at the yuan, you can also see that the yuan is coming down. And so like I said, pay attention to these currencies because as you start to see the yuan and the US dollar weak, getting some strength back. Yuan and how that will affect our market, that we will have to pay attention. I think that's good for us because once a deal is made, this won't actually be a concern, but this is apparently the first time it's actually playing out the way that it is. So that is something to pay attention to as well. There are a few stocks that NBC says to look at. These are just Chinese stocks. These are stocks that rely on China in some way or another. Apple, of course. Alibaba, Baidu. These are all companies that are on the NASDAQ and are tradable. Baidu has been down for a long time. I haven't looked at it in forever, but it's there if you want to take a look at something like that. I don't know if I would do anything about it, but I'll take a look real quick. BADY. All right, so it's at 100. Okay, it's not anymore. I wanted it to fill this gap, but it just won't. So I really don't know what to say when it comes to Baidu. It's supposed to be good, but I've also spoken to a lot of people who live in China, and there you go. Look at this massive spike. And that kind of makes sense based on the current sentiment that we're getting with China and the deal. Wow, 5% almost. Yeah, something actually. But what were we at? 99. Wow. It makes sense. I understand that this is probably a reaction from the same talks. Now they were looking bad, now they're looking really good. How low did they go when they said the China deal wasn't working? That's 1%. Okay, so it reacted like the market, but now it's not reacting like the market, and that's weird. Wow, way above the view app. Anyway, so paying attention to these are really important. But I think there's some other stocks that I really like looking at. I am going to, once these are configured, turn off my Wi-Fi. Okay. All right, welcome everybody. So if we take a look at these, you can see how some of these stocks have been playing out right now. I use these are 9x9. I use 9 stocks on these charts. I have 2 more of them with different stocks. Don't mind all these lines here. I have 2 more of these, and this lets me do, because this is the 1 minute this is the 1 day, and this is the 2 minute, and this allows me to think about how the intraday moves are happening in context with the long term, right? And I think this is an important skill to develop, is to understand what the context of everything means. So for example, this Netflix upgrade slash downgrade. It's actually a downgrade, but it's moving up because it's not even close to it. It's got $180, or it's got about $100 now, $90 before it reaches the price target that was set for that company. It took support at this level that I had written a while ago. This is news, obviously. This isn't predicted at this level, but it's really kind of cool to see how that happened. And UIL is extremely easy. I'm kind of a moron, honestly, because I don't play this. It's such an easy thing to play. Playing it down, up, it's very consistent. You can see it. I mean, look at this. You see this. It's so insane. Then you got Baba, who is a doji today, which is kind of crazy. And like I said, that's just October for you. You get some crazy moves and still nothing happens. This wicking, but what this do? Let me see where support is taken, where pressure is, buying pressure, selling pressure, whatever the case is. Lets me kind of see where everything is in context. Now, UNH actually moved like a lot today. It opened at 217 or 217, close to 224, give or take. We hit a high 224.13, so that's $7. That's a lot, I think, for this company. I very rarely see that. And so these don't necessarily mean in and of themselves, but they start to make sense in a great context of things. BA's been coming down today, but not, today it had red day today, and if you look at it, we could actually come back down to here. These tend to work out pretty well for me, so I pay attention to them without relying on them solely. And you can see this downrun in the context of the daily, and I think it's very useful. So if this is something you want to do, I'll share the link later. Just request it, whatever the hell. Yeah, and I think as of now, what we really have to understand is that all of this that's been going on, we aren't going to know anything about anything. We don't know how this next week is going to play out. I definitely think next week will be a whole lot crazier than this week. I think we're going to get some serious moves, some serious volatility. I want to figure out exactly how, maybe what direction. That's kind of hard to do. I'll try to figure out what is going to be reacting though. I mean, because some things just don't. And if you pay attention to these, you'll eventually start to understand the context of why certain things are moving a certain way. Yeah, I do think it's going to be a big week, and I think that it's possible that these stocks are really going to start climbing. I think my TTM thing will probably work out in my favor. I really hope that it starts to make sense in that way, though. I think I'm starting to ramble, so I think I'm going to cut this one. But yeah, so keep an eye on these. Keep an eye on the yuan. Keep an eye on the bonds. All of this is really important stuff. The bonds are, if you watch the TLT, which I think I covered in this video, I hope. I thought I covered it in the other one, but I don't know. The TLTs have been coming down, so watch that. Keep an eye on it. There are bigger moves. I think there's some huge moves being priced in. I think they're being ready. There were a lot of sweeps that were bought today, near the end of the day, like $400,000 worth of sweeps and SPY and stuff like that. So keep an eye on it, because I think we're gonna start seeing some rallying and stuff like that. So yeah, thank you for watching. This is the first time I said thank you. So yeah, I will see you guys later.